Today we're going to take a look at the electric versus petrol chainsaw debate. We'll run through some pros and cons of each, some statistics, how they stack up against each other and how well they perform. And obviously I don't have every single brand and chainsaw out here to compare together, but I've got two similar chainsaws in two of the top brands. So we have the Makita, it's the DUC 400 electric chainsaw with a 16-inch chain on it. And then we have the Stihl Mini Boss 180 petrol chainsaw with a 16-inch chain on it. Both of these are my own chainsaws that I've purchased outright with my own money. Starting with the reason why I went Stihl and Makita, I got the Stihl one maybe 5 years or so ago now, and simply because of the fact that my dad recommended it. He had one already and thought they were a good brand, and we had a Stihl shop not too far from our house to go buy one and then pick up bits and pieces for it when we needed, and it's been a great chainsaw. The reason I got the electric Makita one was because I'd heard good things about them. I'd seen plenty of positive feedback, and I was already running Makita power equipment like drills and grinders and stuff, so I already had the batteries and chargers and that I needed for it, which brought the cost down a couple $100. Otherwise, if I had gone a different brand, I would have had to get all the charging packs and batteries as well. Starting with the weight of both these, I did that at home, so I'll pop that up on the screen now. Obviously the weight is going to vary whichever model you are getting, but these are sort of both in the similar range, petrol and electric one. We'll chuck the electric one on first. It obviously has both batteries in and a full tank of bar oil. There's the electric one, just past 5, but before 5.2, so somewhere around the 5.1 kilo mark. And then we'll do the petrol one, which is the same again, full tank of fuel and a full tank of bar oil. Chuck that on, and very similar, maybe 30-40 grams less. But yeah, basically both those set up, ready to go, nearly identical. Next thing is the price, and this is where the petrol is a decent amount cheaper. So in Australia, Stihl Mini Boss 180 comes in at $299, whereas the Makita one comes in at $475. Then to get two batteries and a charger with it comes in at $699. That's from the company's websites themselves. If you shop around, you may be able to get a better deal or find one on special at some stage. And then probably the main other price and bit of kit you're going to need to purchase with these as an ongoing thing is the chains, replacement chains, or once you wear yours out. That's where the Stihl one is a little bit more expensive, $35.75, and the Makita replacement chain is $27.50. The other point to consider there, batteries for these, so you're just going to have to recharge them, so you're going to use a little bit of power recharging batteries, I guess. Whereas this, you actually have to purchase fuel, which is not a massive amount, but it's going to be a few dollars worth of fuel here and there. Taking a look at the bags and what you need to carry with each chainsaw, starting with the electric one. This is actually a free bag I got with it when I bought it, part of a promotional deal they had going on at the time. It's the Makita bag itself. So you got the bar and chain holder thing, whatever that's called there. You obviously have it in when you're carrying it. It's a little bag here I carry with it, which has got the charging pack with it. Now this is only a single one, can only charge one battery at a time, but you can actually buy double ones where you can charge both batteries at the same time, because this chainsaw does hold two batteries. And then I've also got a couple of spare chains in there as well. The final thing is I got some bar oil there. So that's my components for the electric one. And then if we have a look at the petrol one, got a 2-litre can of fuel there. Got some bar oil once again. Got the chain and bar holder once again for when it's in its bag. I got a spare chain for it there. Got the tool you need to tighten and loosen the bar and chain. I got some mixing oil because you need to mix your petrol when you buy it. Now I got some chain sharpening tools as well to sharpen the chain once I've used it for a bit to keep it nice and fresh. And I don't actually have that for the Makita yet, but I have ordered that. So I've ordered a similar kit up as well. Similar setup as well. The main big advantage and disadvantage there of what you have to carry with these is a petrol one. You obviously have to carry petrol, which can be a bit painful, to be honest. Electric, you don't have to carry any petrol, you're just carrying your battery. The main problem I find with petrol is it is very stinky. It's very hard to get containers that are 100% leak and smell proof, meaning you generally have to keep it outside your vehicle, on the roof rack or on the back somewhere. Even if I put it in the train canopy, it just stinks the whole thing out. Whereas the electric, I can put wherever and it won't have any smell, because the bar oil doesn't have any smell. It's the petrol that's the problem. That's one of the main advantages that I do like of the electric over the petrol. Another thing I'll talk about is the starting of each one and the noise of each one, which you'll see a bit better when we actually use them. Basically, the electric is a whole heap easier to start and on your body. If you have a bad shoulder or a bad back or something, it's like a simple press button and trigger and it's going. Whereas the petrol is a yank the lever, whatever you want to call it. You're often having to rip it quite a few times, which can be a little bit painful. Not a major thing, but just something to be wary of. The other thing is the noise. The electric still does have a decent amount of noise. I use earplugs when I use it, but it's nothing compared to the petrol. The petrol just literally roars down the forest around you. It's so loud, whereas this... And then I've never had any problems getting this going. This always press the button, boom, it's off. Whereas I've found I have had problems getting this going at times in certain really cold conditions, or if it's been sitting around too long without use, you end up having to yank and pull and do your different settings quite a few different times to finally get it running, and then you sort of got to hold some revs into it to get it warmed up and all that. Oh, I've got a decent log there on the side of the road, so I'm going to set that up somewhere, and then we're going to put these both to the test side by side and see how they cut. But actually, I just remember, before I do that, because this is a big thing, I'm going to put fresh chains on each one. Both chains in their boxes unused. That's a big one, because otherwise it's just going to be whichever has the fresher chain is going to cut and perform much better. Sharp chains really do make a massive difference on these things. Once they get blunt, like, they're near useless. There's our fresh Makita chain. One good thing about this chainsaw, the electric one, is it doesn't actually require any tools. So you loosen that, and then off comes your cover there. Pull your bar and chain out, and then you're able to swap it over. And we just line that chain up there along the bar. Obviously make sure you put it on with the cutting edges facing the right way, otherwise it won't cut very well at all if it's trying to cut backwards, which I actually did once before and it didn't cut at all. Chain on, just try and line this up, which can be slightly painful at times, but not too bad. Tighten that back up, not all the way. Just want to check that chain before we tighten it right up. And then to tighten the chain on this, it's just a little knob on the side there, which you'll tighten or loosen it up. Which once again, you don't need a tool, which makes it quite handy. You just want a little bit of give there, but not too much that you can't move it with your fingers. Tighten that up and it's ready to go. That's the electric one done. We'll do this, put a fresh chain on this petrol one now. You do need a tool for this. You got to undo these nuts. Once again, you got a cover come off. It looks very similar in there. And we're just going to loosen up this chain a bit before we pull it off, which is a nut there. Just a flathead screwdriver. And then we'll just loosen that up a bit, which will loosen that chain and make it easier to get that one off and the new one on. Fresh chain on there, line it up again. Put that cover back on and then lightly do up both your nuts there just to hold it together. But you don't want to fully tighten it, because you got to tighten the chain up before you do that. So as we can see now, the chain rotates, but it's obviously way too slack there. So we've got to get in and make sure we tighten it up.
What, the chainsaw mechanic skills?
Yep. Chainsaw mechanic with no idea what he's talking about. Oh, there it is, much better. You can still move it with your fingers, and then there's a bit of movement there, but it's not loose and slapping all over the place. Fully tighten it up and we're ready to go. Alright, I've got a nice decent dead log here lined up along the edge of the bank. So what I'll do is I'll do 6 cuts with the electric. I'll go down, up, down, up, down, up, and then I'll do the petrol. My chainsaw skills probably aren't amazing or the best in the world. I just do a bit of sawing on route on the tracks and getting some firewood for home. Just like all this information today, I'm not really an expert. I'm just sharing for the advice from a everyday person who has a chainsaw but doesn't really know what's going on. So we'll see how easier this one is to start up. Press the button and then it goes. So that's all you need to do for this. Kai's going to time it on the phone. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. I just remembered that was a bit dumb of me. I forgot to put my glasses on. You should really have glasses on when you chainsaw. I got earplugs and gloves on at least. What was the time for that? 47 and 64 seconds. 47 seconds, 64 milliseconds. So that's the electric one done. Now we'll go again with the petrol. All right, this is starting at the petrol one, which is a little bit more difficult, but put it down there. We go 1, 2. There's the crank. We'll turn it back. And it. There. As you can see, it's much louder. Alright, we'll go 3, 2, 1. Jeez. So how was the time on that one? Okay, 34.77 of the petrol, 47.64 of the electric. So there's, what's the math there? 12, 13 seconds? 13 seconds quicker there on the petrol. That actually surprised me. I thought they'd be close, more similar. As you can see, they both perform well. Petrol one there's definitely putting out some more power. Yeah, what were you saying? When I put the petrol one on, it was like way louder than you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you haven't used it in so long.
Yeah.
It's just so quiet.
Yeah, that's right. Kind of got blown away by the noise of that petrol there. That's the thing. They're just so much louder. Even with earplugs in, I feel like it's only just. I kind of need earmuffs over my earplugs if I want, you know, that full proper ear protection. The other thing I'd love to test, which I'm just not going to do today because I know they both last ages. I'm going to be out here chopping wood for ages, is to see how long each one lasts. A tank of fuel versus 2 batteries. But from experience, like those 2 batteries will last a whole weekend of track clearing and campfire and getting wood and that. And the petrol will last similar time as well. I would say with the batteries, if they're 2 5 amp hour batteries, if they're both fully charged, you would get a 3-day, 2-night camping trip of, you know, collecting firewood and using them out and about. If you're doing heaps of track clearing, you're gonna have to recharge them, obviously. And then the petrol one's probably the same. You get a full tank of fuel, will give you that amount of time. But it's obviously much more easier to just tip some fuel in and go again. Whereas the electric one, you gotta actually wait for your batteries to charge up or have some spare ones, I guess, if you're using it heaps. Another thing to consider with the electric is if you don't have an inverter, you're not going to be able to charge batteries on the go. So I have a proper dual battery system with an inverter there, so plug it in, power it up, and then you're charging. So looking on my app now of how much power that's using charging up, it's saying it's using about 19 amps per hour charging up. I'm not sure if that would be 100% accurate. Seems like a lot, but anyways, that's what it's saying. Do need a decent amount of power to charge these and an inverter to charge them when you're going, or have enough to last you through the trip away that you're going on. Alright, I won't go on and on. We'll do a bit of a final summary there. My personal opinion is I much prefer and would stick with, even after today's testing, the electric for full driving, camping, track clearing, collecting wood when you're out and, you know, just being in your car and on the go. Whereas if you're after a chainsaw for wood collection around the house, where you know you're going out bush, collecting a big load of wood and bring it back home, I would go the Petrol. As we sort of saw today, it cuts quicker and puts out more power, and you just take a heap of fuel with you, a heap of bar oil, and then it'll just keep running and running and running, whereas you run into the dilemma of after, they do take a lot of use, but after a while this is obviously going to run out of batteries. But the main reasons I prefer carrying this with me on our trips is I can chuck it in the train canopy. I don't have to worry about petrol smell. It's so much easier to start. So I know when I used to carry this thing, oh, you gotta like get it out, rip it, tear it, start it up, roar down the bush, and it's like I'd go for the handsaw a lot of times, whereas this I hardly ever go for the handsaw, because you just pull it out, boom, boom, press the button, and you're away cutting stuff, chuck it back in, and off you go again. And you're not having to carry, you not have to carry all that fuel around with you. And it's so much quieter for using around camp and around the bush. So there's a few different things there to consider, but hopefully that gave people a little bit of a insight of the pros and cons in each one, and where it might be more suited to you. If you have any questions, let me know. But other than that, I think we're all done.
Goodbye.
Good boy. Another thing I just remembered is when I was cutting with that electric, it sort of stalled, the chain stopped running there for a second. So I'd say that probably cost me 3 or 4 seconds on the time. So I'd say realistically there was a 10-ish second difference there, or just under. The petrol one was definitely faster, but yeah, just minus that few seconds off that electric total time there. One last thing I will say for the video, I'm just on my way home, but I just remembered it in regards to them both cutting bigger sized logs, because obviously the one cut today was, you know, just a medium sized log that you cut up for firewood or something like that, but they're both well and truly capable of cutting up big stuff, and I've done it with both of them, you know, not massive, but stuff that is quite big that you've had to track clear, decent sized logs. And yeah, they're both well and truly capable of doing it. I'd just say that the petrol does it a bit quicker than the electric one. Chainsaw debate, run few, and how they rack up against each other, and some final, just back at home, and then whereas the Makita, now taking a look at the bags and what you need to carry with, Another thing I'll talk about is the starting and the noise of it. Plugs when I use it, because I have had problems. Alright, we're going to put up the reason being, don't think there's anything else in there, so.